That year I went swimming for the first time, but was shocked to find that the women's pool was full of men, and I started complaining about why I couldn't use it.
Keep your voice down.
My father told me that girls can't swim in public, and I didn't agree. I am Trudy Adele. I thought women's only meant that she could swim freely and safely. But the reality in front of me, a swimming pool filled with men, directly shattered my simple understanding of rules and fairness. My shock came from a sense of confusion of being deprived of rights. I was told that this was my space, but I found that I had nowhere to go. It was this shock that planted the seeds of my challenge to authority and pursuit of fairness. My father thought it was just childish behavior that would pass in a few days, but he was wrong. He finally agreed. He tied one end of the hemp rope around my waist, held the other end in his hand, stood on the bridge, and repeatedly told me to take your time, don't rush. But I couldn't hear his voice at all. At that moment, I was like a fish that had been dry for too long, diving into the water, desperately pushing away the world that belonged to me. Once, my sister and I went to watch a men's swimming competition. I stood by the pool with my eyes shining with excitement. But a male coach said coldly,
"Maybe she could race a German Shepherd."
This sentence cut into my heart like a knife, but it hurt my mother the most. That night, my mother announced at the dinner table that she wanted us to join the women's swimming team. My father didn't think so. He always felt that my mother took it for granted and thought that we were just a child's game. But my mother didn't argue anymore. She just took us to the boiler room the next day. It turned out that the women's swimming team really existed, hidden between the steam and the iron pipes. When my sister and I saw the new swimming style for the first time, it was like seeing the door to another universe. We immediately decided we must stay. But the coach looked at our movements and only nodded to keep my sister. He frowned and said that I was like a lame horse and had no talent at all. I knew he was telling the truth. But I also knew that passion is not talent, but unwillingness to give up. My mother fought for me, and the coach finally let me stay on the condition that I would burn the boiler every day. I agreed. Every day I boiled water first, then practiced. The steam could not blur my determination, and I threw every minute into the swimming pool. Finally, one day, we received a notice to compete with the Australian women's champion. The coach put all his hopes on my sister, and what about me? He said I was just there to make up the numbers. On the day of the competition, I was so nervous that I slipped and fell into the water as soon as I got on the court. I was thrown several meters away by other players, but I didn't panic. I quickly adjusted myself and started chasing, breathing, and splashing together one circle after another. Just in the last round, everyone in the audience exclaimed, the girl who was the most backward actually started to overtake. I surpassed my sister and sprinted to the first place. Finally, I won the championship. Since then, I have been winning awards and breaking records. Soon, the chairman of the National Olympic Committee found me. He hoped that I would go to Paris to represent the United States and participate in the 8th Olympic Games. I readily agreed. But when I boarded the ship to Europe, I was once again hit by reality. The training facilities were only open to male athletes. We could not go on the deck, and we could not even walk freely. The coach also told us, this is for your safety. But I knew in my heart that this was not protection. The coach and the president of the Olympic Committee are birds of a feather. They keep saying that they support us to win glory for the country, but in fact, they don't even want to look at us. In their eyes, face is more important than truth, and men's dignity is more worthy of protection than women's dreams. They will never allow a girl to stand higher than a man. 3 weeks have passed, and we haven't even had a decent training. So when the day of the competition finally came, I knew that my body was not ready at all. I tried my best, but I could only get 3rd place. I know that I am far more than this level. On the day of returning home, the gongs and drums on the dock were loud, all cheers to welcome the male players. And there was not even one person to pick me up. I could only walk home alone, dragging my luggage, quietly and dusty. The clothes I had fought for my country were now only heavy and humiliating. My heart was filled with anger and sense of powerlessness of being manipulated. The swimming team was disbanded. My father sealed my trophies one by one in cardboard boxes, like sealing a dream that I could never bring up again. Fate, like a chain, dragged me back to the starting point. My sister also gave up her lover and married the man arranged by my father. She used to fly freely in the water like me, but now she is wearing a wedding dress and tied by the secular world. We once fantasized about the future together, but reality tells us that women's dreams are not worth mentioning. I returned to my father's butcher shop as if I had never left, but whenever I have free time, I still can't help but walk to the beach. I saw those women in short skirts being taken away by patrolmen, and complex ripples appeared in my heart. This world has never welcomed unruly women like us. I stood in the sea breeze like a lost ship, trapped in the thick fog, unable to see anything clearly, unable to see my future, unable to see my past self. Until that day, a few little girls came towards me. They looked up timidly and asked me,
"Are you Trudy?"
They said it was because of me that their parents allowed them to swim.
One day, I want to be just like you.
Their eyes were clear and bright, and their smiles were like light piercing through the haze in my heart. So I made up my mind to challenge the English Channel, not for medals, but to prove that the power of women is not only in appearance, but in their indomitable and never give up souls. But things are not simple. I need sponsorship. But when the coach took me to stand in front of the Olympic Committee again, the president sneered and said that if I swam to his hotel within 3 hours, he would agree to my request. He didn't believe I could complete the challenge at all. The so-called swim to the hotel within 3 hours was, in his opinion, a seemingly generous but actually sarcastic mockery. At 6:30 that evening, I stood on the dock, confirmed the name of the hotel, and plunged into the dark sea. There was no applause, no rescue boat, only me and the waves. The freezing cold seawater wrapped my body, but I didn't retreat. I waved my arms and kicked my legs in the dark as if I wanted to kick away the whole world that was pressing down on me. That night, I won the sponsorship, but I knew in my heart that the real battle had just begun. The road to success is never smooth. The president sent a helper to accompany me. It happened to be the male coach who took us to the Paris Olympics. The man who once suppressed me personally has now become my assistant. But I have no way out. If I still want to stand on the other side of the sea, I must swallow this breath. This is not a compromise, but a gathering of strength. On July 20th, 1924, before dawn, the whole world was holding its breath. As the first woman to challenge the English Channel, I know that today is not only my battle, but also a day for thousands of girls like me to challenge prejudice and fate through me. I didn't look back, just took a deep breath and jumped into the sea. At that moment, I seemed to jump into the heart of fate. The tide was cold, but my heart was like a flame. I gritted my teeth, swam 2 miles steadily. But soon the coach shouted at me to slow down. I glanced at him and ignored him. I could hear the anxiety in his voice. He was not worried that I would be exhausted, but that he was afraid that I would succeed. The coach could not sit still. He took an apple and walked to the side of the boat, pretending to replenish my energy, but actually wanted to take the opportunity to touch my fingers. As long as I had any physical contact with him, it would be considered a failure. And my hand suddenly retracted, leaving him empty. He smiled to cover up his embarrassment, but I could see the venom in his eyes. But he did not give up. A few minutes later, he brought another bottle of tea. And this time, he pretended to pass it to me with a scoop net. He acted so well that I even let my guard down for a while. My mouth was so dry and painful, so I took it and drank it in big gulps. How could I know that he had drugged the bottle of tea long ago? Within a few minutes, my limbs became weak. I felt dizzy, and I couldn't even tell the direction of the water. Just like that, my first challenge ended in failure. When I struggled back to the shore, my father came to take me home. But just when I thought everything was over, a man in a bathrobe appeared in front of me. At that moment, I recognized him.
Mr. Burgess?
The second man to successfully cross the English Channel. He told me that I was not physically exhausted, but was plotted against. I suddenly understood everything.
He carries pills to put himself to sleep.
And my sister was shaking with anger. She wanted to find the media to expose the matter immediately, but Burgess stopped her. He said, "No one will believe what a loser says. Unless I stand on the waves again and conquer the channel with my own hands."
I came all this way. Might as well see England.
They want me to be silent, but I want the world to hear the loudest echo in the sea. I am still swimming. Burgess took the initiative to volunteer to guide me in the front and accompany me to climb that seemingly insurmountable peak again. 3 days later, I decided to avoid the public eye and returned to the starting point again, accompanied by my family and close friends. The swimsuit that my sister sewed for me fit tightly against my body, and thick animal oil was smeared all over my body to resist the cold seawater. The determination in my heart made me suppress my nervousness, and before the reporters caught up with me, I plunged into the sea without looking back. With the lesson learned last time, I swam more smoothly and freely this time. Soon, I surpassed the last record and successfully swam 8 miles. But suddenly, a patch of red on the sea surface in the distance caught my father's eyes. It was a dangerous group of red jellyfish. Once their tentacles touched the skin, it was extremely painful. At this time, I had no way to retreat and could only gamble everything. I took a deep breath, waved my arms, and rushed into the jellyfish group. The sting spread all over my body like a knife, and my skin was burned and burned. The pain accompanied me screaming, but I gritted my teeth and persisted, and finally swam out of this terrifying water. After a short rest, I continued to move forward. The pain was like a shadow, but it was covered by the warmth. in my heart. After swimming for 13 hours, I was only 5 miles away from the finish line. But this section of the road is the most dangerous shoal in the English Channel. In the past, too many challengers have been buried at the bottom of the sea here. What's worse is that the ship that guides the direction can no longer accompany me, and I have to face the darkness alone. But I never leave myself a way out, let alone a chance to hesitate. However, the most feared thing still happened. I lost my way. The dark sea was silent. I couldn't find any clear reference, and my physical strength was almost overdrawn. At that moment, I was like a helpless child. My eyes were full of fear and anxiety, and I almost wanted to give up. At this moment, a little starlight suddenly appeared behind me. It turned out that people heard the news that I was lost and came to the shore one after another, lit a bonfire for me to light the way home. At that moment, I felt an extremely powerful force surging through my body. Every muscle in my body was tense, and I sprinted towards victory with all my strength. As I got closer and closer to the shore, people flocked to welcome the return of this persistent hero. Finally, I stood up from the sea, taking 14 hours and 31 minutes, 2 hours faster than male swimmers, and became the first woman to cross the English Channel. In the voices of 2 million people on the streets of New York, what I saw was not only support, but the awakening of an era.